back, everybody. This is Homespun by Cathy, and I'm Cathy. And if you watch my channel for builds and upcycles of small farmhouse decor, just hit the notification bell because I promise we'll be getting back to that in the very next video. But this video is a little different. We're doing a furniture flip. So let's hit it.
My cousin was looking around Pinterest. I don't know why. It's crazy over there. But she saw where people had been flipping nightstands into chairs or seats. So we went to the thrift store and she picked out this nightstand. It had a little bit of damage on the body, a little bit more on the feet, and it was huge. But this is the one she picked out, so this is the one I want to help her with. And this was a lot more involved than I expected it to be. But in the end, I think it worked out pretty good. Well, let's demo this thing. First, I took off the plywood back, which fortunately was in really good shape and we can reuse it. The idea for this is we're going to keep the bottom drawer and I'm going to build the seat on top of that. So the other two drawers and the top have to come off. So it was a little bit difficult to get them out. They had some kind of piece of plastic kind of keeping them from falling out there. It was about 12 screws holding the top on. So I got all of those out, and I have to take all of these supports and everything out because obviously it was built to support drawers and not a person sitting in it. So I cut all of those out. Removed all of those drawer rails and put the drawer back in that we're keeping. And now we're kind of looking at a rough skeleton of what we're going to be working with. So now we basically have to build it back. The first thing I need to do is secure this rail in the back. It was above the drawer and it was only held on with staples. So I drove a screw in each side at an angle into the piece to make sure that was sturdy. Then I'm going to add these two vertical pieces as well to make sure it's going to hold weight. My hands look funny because I actually was talking through this section, but my fans were too loud, so I couldn't keep the audio. But that's basically what we have there. And I want to keep that piece that's going from the front to back intact just to make sure everything is held together. So I'm going to secure and make this area more sturdy. And then we're going to build a structure on top of these, front and back, to raise the seat about 4 inches because this is too low for a seat. So I just use my square, make sure everything is vertical, and I just nail those in. And I used drawer parts that we aren't going to use for the seat or for the chair to try to do all of this. That was a challenge to try to not have to buy a lot of stuff or add lots of outside stuff. Now here I did have to. I had to add a 1x4 that I already had to raise the seat. We needed something wide to fill that 4-inch space. And then I was able to reuse one of the drawer rails and it had a notch. So I could screw that directly into the piece, front and back, around the little curved edge that you see there. And then I just put some pocket holes and screwed in that 1x4. Then I had to build a structure in the back to match the height. And I did use a piece of 1x2 trim that I had. And then I cut up another drawer rail to get these little small vertical pieces. And then I screwed this into the piece on either side. And then I checked to make sure it was level side to side and front to back. So basically now we're looking at the structure that we're going to have, but I've got to cut these pieces off of the top. You notice how the front of this piece curves around. There was a rail up there that was removed. So I just did this with my jigsaw and followed the finish line. That sounded funny. I just followed the stain line. So I took the seat. I'm sorry I don't have the video, but I took what had been the nightstand top and I cut about 3 inches off of either side to use for the arms. They have a curve just like the front of the nightstand, so they'll work perfectly there. And the idea is you use the lid, or what had been the nightstand top, as the seat. And the back is the same height as the arms, so it's like a club chair. I didn't really like it. So originally we were going to have just plywood on the sides and the back, and she was going to actually upholster those. Well, ta-da, design change. I took that seat and flipped it around and put it as the back. It had that detail around it anyway, and I just liked it a lot better. And you see the plywood on the sides. I can't imagine those being upholstered if the back isn't going to be upholstered. So we had a little powwow and decided to make it more like a regular chair. So now I have to put some pocket holes all around what's going to be the back. It's funny. First it was the top, and then it was the seat, and now it's the back. But I bought this little pocket hole jig at Harbor Freight a couple of years ago. I like to buy cheaper tools to begin with, and they have really good ones at Harbor Freight. I need to make sure that I'm going to use it, that it's going to be worth my while to invest in something bigger and or better. But I was making a lot of larger furniture at the time, and I'm not right now, so I don't use it as much. But eventually I'd like to get something a little bit bigger. But right now, this one does the job perfectly. I think it was like 15 or 16 bucks a couple of years ago. I don't know what they are now, but check out Harbor Freight if you're just getting started in woodworking. It's a great place to go and get your first tools. I'm still using miter saw that I got there. And I just bought my second sander there because I just like it. It's 20 bucks and I use the heck out of them. And I'm really not that great of taking care of them, so getting cheaper ones is probably better for me. I put about 4 pocket holes across the back and 2 up each side. And we're going to install that after this. I used the 2 drawers that were left over and cut them down for some wood to use as shiplap on the sides. I think that'll kind of give it a little farmhouse touch. When I took it apart, it had some rough edges, so I had to run them through my table saw just to make them all even and smooth. And then we were ready to install. I actually had to grab a little piece of pallet wood that I had to use as a spacer on the bottom. And when I installed this shiplap, I actually pushed it behind that front part of the piece that curves around. I didn't want to get into having to add a bunch of trim. So it just kind of finished it off by pushing it back there and toenailing it in. And we needed the space on the back because, what had been the nightstand top and then the seat and now it's the back, it really wasn't wide enough. So using the shiplap ended up being something we really needed to do. And I had 3 different sizes of boards, but I just, stacked them the same on both sides and they looked perfectly fine. And I know there's holes on that vertical piece in the front. I used a lot of wood filler. There was a lot of little holes around on damage. And this was where some pegs were holding those rails in. So I filled those in, and I knew we were going to sand and paint, and this was going to work out just fine. Next, we're going to get that back on. I have a lot of trouble with my drill, y'all. My husband says, let the tool do the work. Oh, okay. So anyway, I got all the pocket hole screws in, and we just installed the arms. I just nailed those in from the top and went back and filled the holes with a little wood filler, and they worked out great. And I know that back looks really, really damaged, but it was a really thin finish and it sanded out perfectly. Then I just used this piece of particle board to cut for the seat, and I painted that white, and we're going to stick a cushion on top of that. I had so many projects on my workbench, I couldn't even use my table saw. So I just used my circular saw here and got that cut. Then I had to tackle these feet, and I did something that I didn't think would work, so I didn't film it, and I'm sorry, because it did work, and it was air dry clay, so I could form all the little curves, and I didn't expect it to work, really. And it's really hard. I sanded the heck out of it. It painted up great, and it seemed to work just fine. And then I just quickly sanded the drawer that we're going to keep and prep it for paint, vacuumed it all out, and then we're ready to go with paint. So here comes the fun part, making it all pretty, and I used this cabinet and furniture paint from Lowe's in Nebulous White. And I got the Valspar brand. I used to flip a lot of furniture, and I have spray painted as well as brushed, and I never really used, good expensive paint, because good paint is expensive, and I've never used really good expensive brushes. And I have to say, it makes a huge difference. And it's been a long time, and I'm sure it's come a long way. And this piece turned out so good with no brush strokes. And I assure you, it was not because of my ability. It was the paint. This was some really good stuff. And I put a really good thick coat on first. Then I did sand a little bit between the first and second coat, and I just had to kind of feather coat the second coat on in a lot of places just to cover some of that dark stain that showed through, and it worked great. And I stuck that plywood back on, and then we were done. And this turned out to be the cutest project. Isn't that cute? She brought up her cushion, and there she is. This looks like something perfect beside an entryway. You can use that drawer for hats, gloves, scarves, any knickknacks that you need going in and out of the house. And you can sit there and take your shoes on and off, and it turned out perfectly. You guys, let me know what you think. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can come back for the next video when we are back to small farmhouse decor, getting ready for our fall shows. Thanks for watching.